Hello, my name is Logan Galbraith, and today I'll be walking through my leadership reflection and MBTI analysis. This presentation focuses on interpreting the quantitative feedback I received from my followers, comparing it to my own self assessment, and connecting those results to my ISFJ personality type. I'll also be discussing how I can use this information to strengthen my leadership approach moving forward, especially within my role at Johnson University Athletics, where leadership plays out daily in operations, communication, and team culture. So, the overview. The goal of this presentation is to better understand my leadership strengths and areas for growth. I'll start by reviewing the quantitative data from my follower evaluations, thanks to my work study students, then highlight the key themes that stood out. After that, I'll connect these findings to my MBTI type and discuss how my personality influences the way I lead. Finally, I'll share a few specific ways I plan to apply this feedback in my professional role. For instance, how I handle game day operations, staff coordination, and communication across our athletic teams. So, the quantitative feedback summary. In total, 14 leadership traits were evaluated. Each category had two scores, the average from those I interviewed and my own self assessment. Across nearly every category, my followers rated me slightly higher than I rated myself. For example, they gave me perfect fives in categories like dependability and diligence, while I scored myself slightly lower. This tells me that I tend to be humble when evaluating my performance, but it also shows that my peers notice and value the consistency I bring to the team. That's a big encouragement for me as a young professional continuing to grow in my confidence. The key traits rated highest by followers. They rated me a near perfect or perfect 5 in several areas, being articulate, perceptive, trustworthy, dependable, conscientious, and diligent. These traits show that others view me as someone who communicates clearly, follows through on commitments, and operates with integrity. One example that comes to mind is during one of our baseball doubleheaders last year. I had to coordinate the live stream, manage the stats, and communicate with our coaches and umpires, all while troubleshooting a last minute camera issue. My ability to stay calm, communicate clearly, and handle each task in order really reflected those dependable and articulate qualities that others see in me. Now for the key traits rated lower by my followers. On the other hand, traits like determination, self assurance, and empathy scored slightly lower. I think this reflects moments where I've hesitated to speak up or take the lead when I wasn't 100% confident. For example, there have been times during event planning meetings where I knew the schedule needed adjusting but hesitated to say something because I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I've learned that leadership sometimes means speaking up even when it's uncomfortable, because doing what's best for the group often requires confident, timely action. This is something I've struggled with my whole life, but I realize now that it is really important for me to work on this moving forward if I want to grow not only as a leader, but as a team member. My self evaluation summary. When I look at my own scores, I noticed I was consistently more critical of myself than my followers were. I tend to hold myself to high standards, which can sometimes make me overly cautious or hesitant to recognize progress. I think this mindset helps me stay grounded, but it can also make me overlook growth. For instance, when managing our student staff, I sometimes focus more on what could have gone better instead of recognizing how smoothly most things actually went. This feedback reminds me to celebrate the wins along the way. Interpretation of the feedback. Overall, the feedback paints a picture of a reliable and steady leader. My peers see me as someone who communicates effectively, builds trust, and stays consistent under pressure. I tend to focus more on where I need improvement, but this data reminds me that consistency, empathy, and dependability are strengths that already define my leadership. For example, even during busy game weekends or multi sport overlaps, people know they can rely on me to handle my responsibilities. That consistency builds quiet confidence over time. The expected results versus the surprising results. Most of the results aligned with my expectations, especially being rated high in dependability and work ethic. The biggest surprise came from how confident others perceive me to be. I don't always see myself as that way, and I never have. But this shows that confidence doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's reflected through quiet consistency and follow through. One of my coaches once told me that my calm approach helps others stay composed even when things get hectic. That was a powerful reminder that confidence can look different depending on someone's personality type. Some of the lessons I learned. This process taught me that leadership isn't about being the most dominant voice in the room. It's about earning trust through action and consistency. I learned that people value how I treat them and how dependable I am. For example, during one of our busy game days last year, several workers told me how much they appreciated my organization and communication because it made them feel confident in their roles. Moving forward, I want to grow in showing more confidence and conviction while maintaining the humility that others already recognize in me. My MBTI type, which is ISFJ. According to the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, my personality type is ISFJ, which means introverted, sensing, feeling, and judging. ISFJs are known for being dependable, loyal, empathetic, and detail oriented. We take pride in serving others and maintaining structure. These traits explain why I often focus on harmony and reliability in my leadership style. In my role, this shows up in how I approach planning. I like to make sure everything is thought through, communicated clearly, and executed with care. ISFJ leadership traits. As a leader, my ISFJ traits drive me to lead through relationships rather than authority. I'm naturally motivated to help others succeed and create a stable, supportive environment. For example, when a new student worker joins our athletic team, I make it a point to show them around, introduce them to the coaches, and help them better understand their role. I was once a work study student too, so I know how it feels to have that shown to you and just be on your own. However, I've also learned that my tendency to avoid conflict can make it hard to address problems quickly. Recognizing this helps me be more intentional about stepping up in those moments. Connecting the MBTI to feedback. The MBTI results line up closely with my feedback data. My followers rated me high in dependability and diligence, two core ISFJ strengths. At the same time, areas like determination and self-assurance reflect my cautious nature. This confirms that my personality plays a big role in how I approach leadership, and that growth will come from balancing empathy with assertiveness. For instance, I can still show I care for my staff while being clear about expectations and deadlines. Strengths to maintain. The main strengths I want to continue developing are my integrity, dependability, and communication. I've learned that people count on me to be steady and trustworthy. These are qualities I'd never want to lose. One example of this is how coaches often reach out to me directly when something needs to be done quickly because they know I'll handle it carefully and correctly. These consistent habits have helped me earn credibility over my time at Johnson so far. Areas for growth. The key areas I'm focusing on are confidence, decision making, perseverance under pressure, and trying to maintain empathy without overextending myself. I also want to be more assertive in situations that call for leadership presence. For instance, when managing overlapping events, I can take the lead in delegating tasks right away instead of waiting for direction. These steps will help me become more proactive and self assured while staying grounded in my humility. Now let's look at applying my feedback to leadership. To apply this feedback, I plan to be more proactive in taking leadership opportunities that stretch me. For example, I've volunteered to lead a new outreach initiative for our booster club, the Royal Club, which will challenge me to communicate directly with sponsors and community partners. This comes in the form of what they might want in return for their partnership, or what we can do to better build our partnership. I will also work on trusting my preparation when leading events. Setting measurable goals for persistence and assertiveness will help me track progress. And I'll continue to ask for honest feedback because self awareness is key to long term leadership growth. Now we'll look at how this connects to servant leadership. My ISFJ type aligns perfectly with servant leadership. Both focus on humility, empathy, and a desire to serve others first. The areas I need to strengthen, which are confidence and determination, will make me a more balanced servant leader. For example, I've started trying to focus more on encouraging our student workers to take ownership of their roles, which empowers them instead of just managing them. That balance between service and accountability is something I really want to keep developing as I grow as a leader. Now let's look at my long-term leadership goals. My long-term goal is to continue growing into a leader who leads with both compassion and conviction. I want to build a culture where my people feel valued, supported, and motivated, because this is exactly the kind of environment I would want to work in. For instance, one leader I really admire is Tony Dungy. He led with a quiet strength and faith-based humility, but his teams respected him deeply because of how consistent and composed he was at all times. That's the kind of leader I want to become. Someone who is confident, but also grounded in faith and service. The key takeaways. To summarize, my followers see strengths that I sometimes overlook. Confidence and determination are clear growth points, but I already have a strong foundation in trust, empathy, and reliability. My ISFJ personality gives me a natural servant leadership mindset, and continuing to build on that foundation will make me a stronger and more balanced leader. The biggest takeaway for me is that I don't need to change who I am to grow. I just need to step into leadership moments with confidence. To wrap up, I just want to leave you with this quote from Simon Sinek. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those who in your charge. This quote perfectly captures what I've learned, that real leadership starts with service, humility, and the willingness to grow. My goal is to keep learning, improving, and serving others faithfully in whatever leadership role I am placed in. Thank you so much.